The Seven Foals. There was once upon a time a couple of poor folks who lived in a wretched hut, far away from everyone else in the wood. They only just managed to live from hand to mouth, and had great difficulty in doing even so much as that. But they had 3 sons, and the youngest of them was called Cinderlad, for he did nothing else but lie and poke among the ashes. One day the oldest lad said that he would go out and earn his living. He soon got leave to do that, and set out on his way into the world. He walked on for a whole day, and when night was beginning to fall, he came to a royal palace. The king was standing outside on the steps, and asked where he was going. "I'm going about seeking a place, my father," said the youth. "Wilt thou serve me and watch my 7 foals?" asked the king. "If thou canst watch them for a whole day, and tell me at night where they eat and drink, thou shalt have the princess and half my kingdom. But if thou canst not, I will cut 3 red stripes in your back." The youth thought it was very easy work to watch foals, and he could do it well enough. Next morning, when day was beginning to dawn, the king's master of the horse led out the 7 foals, and they ran away, and the youth after them just as it chanced, over hill and dale, through woods and in bogs. When the youth had run thus for a long time, he began to be tired, and when he had held on a little longer, he was hardly weary of watching it all. And at the same moment he came to a cleft in the rock where an old woman was sitting spinning with a distaff in her hand. As soon as she caught sight of the youth, who was running after the foals till the perspiration streamed down his face, she cried, come hither, my handsome son, and let me comb your hair for you." The lad was willing enough, so he sat down in the cleft of the rocks beside the old hag, and laid his head on her knees, and she combed his hair all day while he lay there, and gave himself up to idleness. When the evening was drawing near, the youth wanted to go. "I may just as well go straight home again," he said, "for it is no use to go to the king's palace." "Wait till dusk," said the old hag. "Then the king's foals will pass by this place again, and you can run home with them. No one will ever know that you've been lying here all day instead of watching the foals." So, when they came, she gave the lad a bottle of water and a bit of moss, and told him to show these to the king, and say that this was what his 7 foals ate and drank. "Hast thou faithfully and well watched them the whole day?" said the king, when the lad came to his presence in the evening. "Yes, that I have," said the youth. "Then you are able to tell me what it is that my 7 foals eat and drink," said the king. So the youth produced the bottle of water and a bit of moss he had gotten from the old woman, saying, "Here you see their meat, and here you see their drink." Then the king knew how his watching had been done, and fell into such a rage that he ordered his people to chase the youth back to his own home at once. But first they were to cut 3 red stripes in his back, and rub salt in them. When the youth reached home again, anyone can imagine what state of mind he was in. He had gone out once to seek a place, he said, but never would do such a thing again. Next day, the second son said that he would now go out into the world to seek his fortune. His father and mother said no, and bade him to look at his brother's back, but the youth would not give up his design and stuck to it, and after a long time he got leave to go, and set forth on his way. When he walked all day too, he came to the king's palace, and the king was standing outside on the steps, and asked where he was going, and when the youth replied that he was going out in search of a place, The king said that he might enter into his service and watch his 7 foals. Then the king promised him the same punishment and the same reward as he had offered his brother. The youth at once consented to this and entered into the king's service, for he thought he could easily watch the foals and inform the king what they ate and drank. In the grey light of dawn, the master of the horse let out the 7 foals, and off they went again over hill and dale, and off went the lad after them. But all went with him as it has done with his brother. When he had run over the foals for a long, long time, he was hot and tired, and passed by a cleft in the rock, where an old woman was sitting spinning with a distaff, and she called to him, come hither, my handsome son, and let me comb your hair." The youth liked the thought of this, and let the foals run where they chose, and seated himself in the cleft of the rock beside the old hag. So there he sat with his head on her lap, and taking his ease the livelong day. The foals came back in the evening, and he too got a bit of moss and a bottle of water from the old hag, which things he has to show to the king. But when the king asked the youth, "Canst thou tell me where my 7 foals eat and drink?" And the youth showed him the bit of moss and the bottle of water, and said, "Yes, you may behold their meat and hear their drink." The king became wroth, and commanded that 3 red stripes should be cut on the lad's back, and salt should be strewn upon them, that he should be instantly chased back to his own home. So when the youth got home, he too all related what had happened to him, and he too said that he had gone out in search of a place once, but that he would never do it again. On the 3rd day, Cinderlad wanted to set out. He had a fancy to try to watch the 7 foals for himself, he said. The 2 others laughed at him and mocked him. "What? When all went so ill with us, do you suppose that you are going to succeed? You look like succeeding. You have never done anything in your life but lie and poke about among the ashes," they said. "Yes, I will go too," said Cinderlad, "for I have taken it into my head." The 2 brothers continued to laugh at him, and his father and mother begged him not to go, but all to no purpose, and Cinderlad set out on his way. So when he had walked the whole day, he too came to the king's palace as darkness began to fall. There stood the king outside on the steps, and asked whither he was bound. "I was walking about in search of a place," said Cinderlad. "From whence do you come, then?" inquired the king, for by this time he wanted to know a little more about the men he took in before any of them took his service. So Cinderlad told him whence he came, and that he was a brother to the 2 that had watched the 7 foals for the king, and then he inquired if he might be allowed to try to watch them on the following day. "Oh, shame on them," said the king, for it enraged him to think of it. "If thou art brother to those 2, thou art not good match, for I have had enough of such fellows." "Well, but as I have come here, you might as well give me leave to make the attempt," he said. "Oh, very well. If thou art absolutely determined to have thy back flayed, thou mightst have thine way if thou wilt," said the king. "I would much rather have the princess," said Cinderlad. Next morning, in the grey of dawn, the master of the horse let out the 7 foals again, and they set off over hill and dale through woods and bogs, and off went Cinderlad after them. When he had run thus for a long time, he too came to the cleft in the rock. There the old hag was once more sitting and spinning from her distaff, and she cried to Cinderlad, come hither, my handsome son, let me comb your hair for you." "Come to me, then, come to me," said Cinderlad, as he passed by jumping and running, and keeping tight hold of one of the foal's tails. When he got safely past the cleft in the rock, the youngest foal said, "Get on my back, and you will have a long way to go." So the lad did this. And thus they journeyed onwards a long, long way. "Dost thou see anything?" said the fool. "No," said Cinderlad. So they journeyed onwards a good bit further. "Dost thou see anything now?" said the fool. "Oh, no," said the lad. When they had gone thus for a long, long way, the fool asked again, "Dost thou see anything now?" "Yes, now I see something that is white," said Cinderlad. "It looks like the trunk of a great thick birch tree." "Yes, this is where we go in," said the fool. When they got to the trunk, the eldest foal broke down on one side, and there they saw a door where the trunk had been standing. And inside this was a small room, and in the room there was scarcely anything but a small fireplace and a couple of benches. But behind the door hung a great rusty sword and a small pitcher. "Canst thou wield that sword?" asked the fool. Cinderlad tried, but he could not do it. So he had to take the draught from the pitcher, and then one more, and after that another, and then was able to wield the sword with perfect ease. "Good," said the fool. "And now thou must take the sword away with thee, and with it thou shalt cut off the heads of all 7 of us on thy wedding day. And when we shall become princes again as we were before, for we are brothers of the princess, whom thou art to have, if thou canst tell the king what we eat and drink. But there is a mighty troll who has cast a spell over us. When thou hast cut off our heads, thou must take the greatest care to lay each head at the tail of the body to which it belonged before. And then the spell which the troll has cast upon us will lose all its power." Cinderlad promised to do this, and they went on farther. When they had travelled a long, long way, the fool said, "Dost thou see anything?" "No," said Cinderlad. So they went on a great distance farther. "And now," inquired the fool, "seest thou nothing now?" "Alas, no," said Cinderlad. So they travelled onwards again for many and many a mile, over hill and dale. "Now then," said the fool, "dost thou not see anything else?" "Yes," said Cinderlad, "I see something like a bluish streak far, far away." "That is a river," said the fool, "and now we have to cross it." There was a long, handsome bridge over the river, and when they had got to the other side of it again, they travelled on a long, long way. And then once more the fool inquired if Cinderlad saw anything. Yes, this time he saw something that looked black, far, far away, and was rather like a church tower. "Yes," said the fool, "we shall go into that." When the fools got to the churchyard, they turned into men, and looked like sons of a king, and their clothes were so magnificent that they shone with splendor. And they went to the church and received their bread and wine from the priest, who was standing before the altar. And Cinderlad went in too. But when the priest had laid his hands on the princes and read the blessing, they went out of the church again, and Cinderlad went too. But he took with him a flask of wine and some consecrated bread. No sooner had the 7 princes come out of the churchyard than they became foals again. And the Cinderlad got upon the back of the youngest, and they returned the way they had come. Only they went much, much faster. First they went over the bridge, and then past the trunk of the birch tree, and then past the old hag who sat in the cleft of the rock spinning. And they went by so fast that Cinderlad could not hear the old hag screeched after him, but just heard enough to understand that she was terribly enraged. Hast thou watched well and faithfully the whole day?" said the king to Cinderlad as they arrived. I have done my best, replied Cinderlad. Then thou canst tell me what my 7 foals eat and drink, said the king. So Cinderlad pulled forth the consecrated bread and the flask of wine, and showed them to the king. Here thou may behold their meat and their drink, he said. Yes, diligently and faithfully thou hast watched, said the king. And thou shalt have the princess and half the kingdom. So all was made ready for the wedding, and the king said that it was to be so stately and magnificent that everyone should hear of it, and everyone inquire about it. But when they sat down to the marriage feast, the bridegroom arose and went down to the stable, for he said that he had forgotten something which he must go and look to. When he got there, he did what the foals had bidden him, and cut off the heads of all 7. First the eldest, and then the second, and according so to their age. And he was extremely careful to lay each head at the tail of the foal to which it had belonged. And when he had done that, all of the foals became princes again. When he returned to his marriage feast with the 7 princes, the king was so joyful that he kissed both Cinderlad and clapped him on the back, and his bride was still more delighted with him than she had been before. Half my kingdom is thine already, said the king, and the other half shall be thine upon my death, for my sons can get countries and kingdoms for themselves, now that they have become princes again. Therefore, as you may well believe, there was joy and merriment in the wedding.